So this is my unofficial start to episode 8, I think. I'm going to get it wrong one of these days. To an Untold narrative. It's a little side project that I started featuring unknown creatives from different fields. And with that being said, would you like to introduce yourself? Because I don't know anything about you.
Yeah. Likewise, I don't know anything about you either. So my name is Lorena Agolli. I own a shoe and leather repair shop in Toronto. And it used to be an all-female owned shoe repair shop. And then SK, who is our mutual friend and has introduced us, he became sort of the first male apprentice that we took on. And yeah, I've been in the trade for 10 years. And I've owned the business for 8.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I got a lot of questions to go off of that. So yeah, we have a mutual friend who I hope I could get him on this one day too, because obviously he's the mutual person in the room, but and he's super talented himself. So yeah, I mean, this is the first time we've ever spoken, and a lot of the conversations that I've had with the first 7 guests are pretty much people who I've met through Instagram, which has been really fun because it can show the power of the internet first and foremost, but then also how do you build relationships with like-minded people that you just find, right? Most recently, I like this girl or woman, I don't know, from LA commented on one of my TikTok videos. And then she followed me on Instagram, and then we followed each other, and we had a conversation. It was just like this amazing thing. Like, I have no idea who this human is. So very similarly, this is the first time we've spoken. You mentioned that you go by Lo, or your friends call you Lo.
Correct. Yes. Yeah.
So you mentioned you've been in the industry for 10 years. Yeah. Where are you from?
I mean, I'd like to say I'm Canadian because I've lived here for 20 years, but I grew up in Europe and was born there. So kind of moved around a lot.
I was going to say you have an accent.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people say when they first meet me, but yeah. And yeah, so I've lived here for 20 years, and how I got into the industry kind of was a bit of a happy accident. I've known that I've always wanted to do something with my hands. I've done sewing and a bunch of other things and just kind of like played around with stuff. Didn't really finish university because I started stuff and I would just get bored, and I'm like, I'm going to travel and work and just figure life out that way, which has worked the best for me. There's sometimes like regrets. I'm like, oh, I wish I would like to finish something, but I feel like what I'm doing right now is that education for me. I'm learning so much, and it's completely evolved me into who I am today, which is like so surreal to say. But I think we've had so much time lately due to COVID, right? To just sit still and reflect.
Totally. I think I've done a lot of that. Like I'm always on the go, and this has really been a time where there's so much time that you can't fill it all. And so there's leftover time to just sit and think, which has been really nice.
Yeah.
And so where were you born?
I was born in Italy. I grew up in Germany, and I lived in Holland before moving to Canada. So
amazing.
Yeah.
So why the move to Canada?
My dad was an engineer, and his work brought us to so many different places, and he wanted a new change and went for it and decided to like move the whole family to Canada.
And then stayed in Canada.
Stayed in Canada. Yeah, exactly. It's so funny. I like have fought Canada for so many years to like make it my home. It's a different mentality than Europe. Like what resonates with Europe is that like people work to live and enjoy life.
Yep.
In North America is like you work to survive.
Yep.
So I felt that. And then like, again, going back to like the present moment, like COVID just took all that away in one instant. So then you're like, well, what am I hustling and surviving for? Like, why, like, shouldn't I just be able to have like the time and speed to like find myself as a human being, to like learn things on my own pace, to do, everyone learns so differently. But yeah, so shoes happened by a total accident. Like I did a YouTube video of how to make a pair of moccasins, and they were like made out of really like cheap, soft leather. The stitching was terrible, but I putting them on just like it woke me up. There was something so beautiful about it. And it happened in a time in my life when I was like extremely depressed, and like I had mentally and physically like hit rock bottom. My dad had passed away, and there was just like
Sorry to hear that.
things that, you know, had gone on in my life that just came into a dramatic halt. And like that thing with working with your hands and like creating something, even if like to my standards now, I was like, oh my God, that was so terrible. Nonetheless, like it woke me up. And I get glimpses of that when I still do my work, which is why I've been doing it for so long and I love it.
But how did you one day just decide to just build moccasins?
Yeah. I mean, it's weird. Like I went from like different mediums, you know, like of just sewing of clothing, and I've always was interested in leather. Ironically enough, I had a thing with feet. I really hated feet. So like going into bespoke footwear is so like I remember the shoemaker would just like as a joke punish me and make me measure everyone's feet.
Oh my
Of
God.
course it's practice also, but he knew that I was like, okay, like just breathe, like don't look at the feet and like just go with it. And so like again, like I've never planned to do shoes, I've never planned to like do the moccasins. Everything just kind of like happened when it needed to happen. Obviously back then I didn't understand why, and like now that I can have time to reflect, I do. So that's really beautiful and cool about like how I found that trade. But again, like I can't explain why. It just happened.
But so you hinted at it that you started going to university,
Yeah.
or you did, and then you dropped out because you quickly decided, what were you gonna go for?
Okay, so I had gone for interior design.
Oh, okay.
Loved it. But it was just so like, I don't know, I was bored of it and
It's not as creative as
not
actually
as
making
creative.
something.
Yeah. And then like I had some really cool jobs. Like I would just say yes to things I'd never experienced before. So I had a job with a really cool like young startup 3D printing company. And this was like before 3D printing even was a popular thing. Um, I was part of this like cool project where the architects of the city were competing for the uh, transit like bus shelters and things like that, so we got to do all the miniature versions of it and
Oh,
you know
cool.
set up the, so yeah, like I've done like some really interesting jobs. Somehow it just brought me to like, you know, me having to work with my hands, and then whatever that was I think was just gonna reveal itself. But I had no plans on like to like in 10 years I want to end up here. I kind of felt like internally like this maturity clock was ticking, because I was like, oh, okay, I'm approaching 30, like maybe now it's time you should find yourself and like build something, you know. And like society's pressures too, just like, what are you doing with your
Totally.
life?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, no, there's enough pressure to go around to make you go nuts.
Yeah, exactly. um and then yeah, so at, how old was I, 27? I just like went into the trade. And then,
Do you have like a proper training in cobblering, or is it cobbling or cobblering or
yeah, it's cobbling. I apprenticed with a shoemaker for a year. So through like doing the moccasins, I wanted to do more research. Had found a shoemaker in Hungary that I was like debating on perhaps going to visit him and like learn from him. And this was all through like Blogspot and WordPress blogs. Like the websites
this is
weren't even like,
before Instagram?
way before Instagram. And then I was about to like go, and then like a couple of months prior to me finally saying yes to that journey, a friend of a friend was like, hey, this guy that lived in Italy for a couple of years, he just moved to Toronto, he's a shoemaker, he needs extra set of hands. And I'm like, oh, this is the answer. I can be at home and like, you know, work with this guy and learn. And then I was like, when do you need me? I'd go before and after work. I was working as a manager, store manager for Urban Outfitters at one of the locations. So I would go before and after work. And then I decided to just like quit like that corporate life of just like that easy salary coming in, right? And taking it for granted. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to do this. Went full time, unpaid for a year,
Full
learned.
time unpaid?
Well, that wasn't the plan initially.
No,
Our
no kidding.
agreement, yeah, our agreement had come to that hopefully like he would hire me after a couple of months, but business wasn't really picking up at that point. Now he is doing great. And so I just was like, I'll make that sacrifice. I need to learn. And you know, like if you go to Europe, like there you have to pay the masters to teach you,
Yeah.
right? So I appreciated that he trusted me and allowed me to be in that space. And I've learned so much from that
What
experience.
year was this?
So I took over the business in 2013. So that was like 2012, 11. Yeah.
Oh my God. And so I need to because like a lot of the people who are going to watch this are like, you know, very creative and they're
Yes.
hustlers and they, you know,
Yes.
how do you make a decision to work unpaid for an entire year full? Like, what
Yeah.
clicks for you? Is it the passion and the love of learning, or is it like, how did you survive? I'm just very curious. Like, I don't.
I mean, I was lucky that it kind of, I was on unemployment and that helped a little bit. And then my savings were like picking away. But it was fortunate enough that it was happening in the summer. So like, you bike everywhere in the city and like you can easily cut costs. But again, I can't even tell you how I did it. I just did it. And I think for me personally, I can only speak from that perspective of, like I said, it's woke me out of feeling dead inside. And so I was just like, I'm going to go for life. And life right now is telling me you have this opportunity to learn. And it was something I'd never done before. So holding tools was like every day I felt like a kid going to kindergarten and like meeting all the friends and having the best
That's
time.
amazing.
So yeah, but then of course, like, yeah, reality hits after like almost a year. You're just like, oh, I need to make money now. Like I truly have nothing to my name. And then I found a part-time job at Soul Survivor, which was already an existing shoe repair shop. It was quite quiet at that time, like not that many repairs. And in order for me to make more money, I approached all these like vintage stores in the city, and I was like, I can do bulk repair for you. Like I'll charge you nothing. It's just I need to get income coming. So I hustled that way. And then
So
I
you
started,
basically freelance repaired bags?
yeah, and like shoes, anything for like vintage stores, because I knew that they would buy in bulk. And so they needed bulk repairs. And then I approached a vintage store and I was like, let's turn like old school, like, Allen Edmonds, like brogue type men's shoes and just add a chunky, like Vibram wedge sole to it. And they were like, okay, let's do it. And at that time I was not charging for labor at all. I was just like materials. I wanted to like do it all the time. I didn't care what it took. And ironically enough, then this was when Instagram was kind of like picking up. I remember I had like 12 followers. And I
Nice.
don't know how I like, through creeping or whatever, just hitting search buttons, I ended up like seeing this account. I don't even remember the name anymore, but they were from Greenwich Village in New York. And they had completely just started doing what I was offering to the vintage store with like the wedge soles on like a men's brogue shoe. And then that style just started like taking off,
Yeah, totally.
And so I was like, okay, cool. Like the fact that I'm kind of on the same wavelength as like a big city, New York, and like I don't even like I'm even through SGIG, I'm learning all these worlds of all these young, amazing, talented kids out there that are doing insane stuff with sneakers or like shoes and just getting to experiment. And that's what I love about the craft so much is like if you love it, you're going to be a student for life. Like there's just so
Yeah.
much to learn and you can go in so many different directions. Like, do you want to do like traditional Italian bespoke men's shoes, or do you want to like, mix and match or whatever? That's what's so exciting about that world. I don't know if I answered your question. I can like blab on about it, but because you
Totally.
asked like
I think
how,
so.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean there's I don't know, I have a lot of questions.
It's cool.
Yeah, I mean I think that's one of the really great things about footwear is there's so many different styles. That's probably like one of the I mean there's a lot of reasons why I love Vibram, but like the main one is that I get to work in all different environments, right? I'm not
Yeah.
pigeonholed into just running. I'm not
Yeah.
pigeonholed into just fashion. You do everything, and that's kind of the beautiful part of it is that I'm always learning. I've never had the same project come across my table twice.
That's cool.
Every single one's unique, so
Yeah.
it's the same thing. It's like you get giddy about learning something different, or learning a new environment and things like that. And I actually do think that dress shoes are coming back. I think that's the next
Oh, yeah.
trend. I think sneakers are going to die off, and it's all going to be fashion related.
I mean, it's just generations, right? Like the generations that are into sneakers, they're growing up and they want something else. So, I find it ironic, and I wish I had kept all my sneakers that I had when I was a kid, like growing up in Germany, I'd be so rich right now. But obviously, like, nobody realizes like, oh, like that's gonna come back again. So as I get older, I can reflect on like, oh, this is just recycling. This is just like reusing and then rethinking about it. And that's what's so cool, that like, everyone can like resonate and take something from a particular shoe that they are familiar with, and it changes as they grow. But yeah.
Right. So we're gonna go back a little bit.
Okay.
So you were learning from this cobbler who came from Italy. Was
Yeah.
he the owner of Soul Survivor or a
No,
different?
sorry. So he was like a bespoke shoemaker that had a small shop underneath a tailoring place in the east end of the city. So
Okay,
I was apprenticing with him, and then when I needed money and he couldn't hire me, that's when I started looking for work, and I found Soul Survivor.
gotcha.
And Soul Survivor is located in like the heart of the city in a really cool neighborhood called Kensington Market. So it has a bit of a hippie vibe to it, and I think that's what really like worked with that shop and the craft that I was taking over, because it's such a mind trip. It's like you see a young person doing like this crazy old trade, and like the shop feels like kind of old. It's in a basement, and like all the tools that are metal and wood and heavy,
They're
and
old,
like,
yeah.
yeah. Um, and I think like maybe that's why I'm also like really attracted to that idea of what I do, or I'm drawn to it, is because like it has such a like old rooted sentiment to it, and I don't feel rooted because I've moved around so much, and I didn't get to like, accumulate that like backpack that I grew up with, and I got to keep it until I was older or whatever. So that's what I love about leather and like the craft of cobbling, that I'm like, oh, I can reconnect with something that's so much older, and it can like full circle make me feel more rooted, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And
Mhm.
so how does that opportunity come up for you to buy the shop or own
Okay.
the
Yeah.
shop?
Yeah, so the owner then had already had the shop for 2 years. I was there for maybe like 6 months, close to a year, working like 1 to 2 days a week. And the owner then was like, okay, I'm gonna close up shop. And I was like, and they're like, we're so sorry. We don't want to do this anymore. I'm like, okay, shit. So then I had to like rethink of like, where can I
Were they
find work?
retiring or
They
were
just they were also younger, and they just wanted to move on
it
and do
ran
other
its
things.
course for them?
Yeah,
They
yeah,
didn't love it. Yeah, I got you.
totally. Um, and then I was like, okay. And then we both kind of at the same time were like, well, wait a second. What do you want to take it over? I'm like, can I take it over? How should I take it over? And I'm broke at this point. Like I had $7 to my bank account.
Oh my God.
Okay. I'm working for cash. So like the man doesn't get my money, just kind of like a little
That's
hard.
it.
Yeah, and then I remember like I went to my mom, and we actually had to go back to Italy for a wedding. So I hadn't been back for like many, many years. And at that time, we had a chance to talk, and I was like, listen, I found something that I love, and I think I can do this, and the shop's for sale, and like, but this is the reality. I don't have that money. Like, I'll pay it back to you. Like, what do you think? And my mom at first, like going to Italy, she plays it all cool and stuff. And then something had come up, at family weddings, is like there's always one little argument. And then of course the truth came out that she was just like, I didn't move to like Canada to give you a better life, and you end up doing like this old trade. And then so the reality hit. I'm like, oh, like, am I in this bubble that like I think I'm doing something so amazing, but everyone around me, they're just like, what the fuck is she doing? Like, she's going to work with her hands. She's going to like do a trade. It's a male dominated trade on top of that. It's a dying trade on top of that. Like, who fixes shoes? Like, that was the mindset then, right? And then she's like, okay, forget it. And then, obviously once things cool down, I just approached her again. And I was like, this is what's going to save me. I need to do this. And you're the only person that I can go to, and I didn't want to like, I just paid off my student loans. I didn't want to like go to the bank and I was just like, I'm starting fresh. And like I said, I was already at rock bottom. Like I didn't want to put myself in a grave and start over, and then, so she agreed, thankfully. And I took over the business. And yeah, the crazy thing is I took it over September 30th, 2013. March of 2014, it's my 30th birthday. I get like a cool feature for a Toronto Star like newspaper. It's a pretty large newspaper in Toronto. And I thought it was going to be a small article. And then I ended up finding out it's like the front page of the business section.
Holy cow.
And I was like, oh shit, I'm turning 30. And at that point, my girlfriend had surprised me to a trip to New York. So I asked a good friend of mine, I was like, watch the shop. It's going to be dead. We get like 2 people in, like, don't stress about it. Just chill, you know? She's like, okay. And I remember I was at the MoMA solo because my other friends, they were doing a photo shoot, and I'm walking around. I get a text from her, and she was just like, on Monday when you get back, we need to go to IKEA and get shelves because look at this. And the floor was covered in shoes. It was
Oh my
flooded in
God.
shoes.
Because
Everyone
of this
had read
article.
the article. Everyone had read the article.
Holy cow.
And yeah, holy cow. Like, it was like, at that point, like, the business had punched me in the stomach and was like, get going. It's about to, like, and it went so fucking fast. Like, and I remember, like, everything that I would spew out and tell people, like, they would ask me, like, okay, so what do you want next? And I was like, oh, I want multiple locations. I want, like, other apprentices. I want them to be all women. Boom, boom, boom. Months. Into the second year, we open up our second location of the business.
Holy cow. You have a second location?
Yeah, had.
Okay, we'll get there. Hold on. I got to dial it back.
And then, like, yeah. So like,
what goes into buying a shop from somebody else who doesn't want to do it? Right? Like,
yeah.
How much, like, I'm curious as to, like, how much does it cost? What do you have to learn? There's obviously a lot of legality to it that,
well,
like,
okay, so
you don't know anything at this point.
Yeah. I had no business plan. I didn't write anything down.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, like, it was just like all of this unfolded truly by feeling and following my gut.
It's amazing.
And it's probably the worst business advice I can ever give, and also the best, because oftentimes, and this is what what keeps coming to forefront of how many years I've done this, so many people want to put on the look of, hey, here's my business plan, here are my ideas, here's this beautiful design, here's graphic, boom, 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 this is what I'm gonna do. And they make that look of like, hey, how long have you been doing this, you know? And for me, it was just like, I'm just gonna do it and then build those other things after.
I love it. That's amazing.
And that's what I did. And I feel like this is what the pandemic also keeps bringing back. And I hope people take advantage of that, is like, it's that, like, big pause everyone's been waiting for. And it's been that restart. Like, even for me in the business now, even though I feel stressed, there's this invigorating thing of, like, I feel like it's day one for me again. Like, I have to think differently. I have to serve people differently. I have to repair differently. Yep. And, like, it's woken me up because, you know, after 8 years, even though every repair is so different, it does feel like you can do it in your sleep sometimes, right? Unless then when you take a vacation, you feel refreshed again, and so on. So yeah, like, that's how quickly, like, and I had no plan. And we both, the owner and I, they were just like, okay, these are what the businesses are worth. This is, like, we definitely negotiated, because I was like, okay, this is too high, I can't do it. And then they were willing to, like, come lower. I did a bit of research of, like, what machinery would, like, cost for me if I were to, like, buy things brand new.
Sure.
And, you know, it was already, like, an established place. It had already been there for 2 years. So, like, it felt like sort of new management was taking over, and then we were just doing things differently.
That's awesome. And then you mentioned you asked your mom, and so did your mom help you out on, like, the financial side? Like,
yeah, sorry, she did. Yeah, she gave me. Yeah, she was kind enough to lend me a loan to pay that, and then I paid her in installments.
Gotcha.
And then, you know,
that's really nice of her. That's a risk.
Yeah, for sure, total risk. But I think she, like, believed in me, even though she was, like, at first probably disappointing. And I get it. Like, maybe for her reaction also was the fact that we were with family, and family was, like, maybe, you know, reflecting that on her and mirroring what is she doing? Like, you guys left Italy for a better life, and so on. And the irony is, like, I ended up finding out my mother's cousin was a shoemaker, and he made all of my shoes when I was a kid, which I never knew. So it's in the family. Like, my mom was she is a chemist, and she ended up, like, after university, she got this job as a manager with a factory that was making rubber boots.
There you go.
So you know, she can't hate. She gets
there.
it. Yeah, she fully understands, you know. So yeah.
So 8 years now.
Yeah.
That you've been running it. You mentioned that it used to be an all women's business.
Mhm.
Was that like the goal or intent when you started? Did you want to hire more people? Like how big is the team? How big or small is the shop? I just have no idea.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, within like the original shop is like 750 square feet,
Okay.
small shop, um, and like in the beginning we had like 6 apprentices and me,
Wow.
and then like in the second year, then we had the second location because we outgrew the physical space, and I was like, we need to spread this out a little bit, so we have one in the middle, like center of the city, and then one in the west. And it was already an existing shoe repair shop as well, so we were the third generation in that shop. And like, initially I only was interested in buying one machine, and he was just like, buy the business, you should have it. And here's the trippy part, and whatever, maybe some people that are going to be listening to this are not going to like believe it, but the day before I was going to meet him, I go to this meditation circle, and I have a vision of seeing him and how I should shake his hand. And so I then go the next day to see him. He's an old Portuguese man, doesn't speak English that well. We were supposed to wait for his daughter to be the translator.
Sure.
She then calls and was like, I'm getting stuck in traffic. Like, do your best to communicate with my dad, or we can reschedule. I'm like, no problem. So him and I were just sign language, and like we would touch a machine. He would show me, then I would do it. But when I first met him, I like grabbed his hand and I like, cupped my hand underneath when I shook it.
Yeah.
Anyways, I was there for like half an hour maybe. I left. The next day his daughter calls, and she was just like, I don't know, like what happened and how you were able to communicate with him. But she goes, the way you like shook his hand was the deal breaker for him, that he wanted you to have the shop.
That's amazing.
And I had a number in my mind. I was like, okay, if I'm going to get this shop, I want this number. And he kept like throwing numbers at me, like, no. And I'd never say what I wanted. And in the end, he was just like, okay, I just want you to have it. And here, pay this. And that's all I need. And I was like, great, that's what I could pay. And I like paid him in cash.
Wow.
Like, give me, yeah.
That's awesome. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm always curious.
It's like a drug deal, but that's what went down. Yeah.
You kind of hinted at like this stigma of like meditation or whatever people want to think about it. Like I personally don't do. I probably should meditate. But I'm curious as to like your thoughts on that, and like, is that something that like helps you out? Is that, I just like diving deep into a lot of different weird things, because if it brings value to one person, then that's all that matters, right?
Yeah.
So it sounds like that really clicked, or maybe there was some sort of connection, and obviously that meant a lot to that man, who was probably very old school, Portuguese, obviously, the way that you connected with him. So I'm curious to like learn a little bit more, and like how that's helped you, or when did you start, and things like that.
Yeah, I started that around the time when I was like sort of hit rock bottom as well. Like, I remember like I would have moments when my dad passed away. If you and I were having a conversation, I would get like the peripheral view of like watching our heads talking, and I would hear everything in echo. And I was like, what's happening to me? Like, I'm not here.
Huh.
And then through a friend of a friend, they were like, go see this woman. She's an energy therapist, and just talk with her. And the moment I mentioned to her what was happening, she goes, oh, that's very common. It means your psyche is leaving your body. And usually at that point is when people have like perhaps accidents, or they might take their own life because they just can no longer connect with the reality. So like truly, I was actually losing my mind and leaving my body.
Wow.
Because I had hit rock bottom. And through that, like little nuggets of like an all women's meditation weekend was happening, and I've never meditated in my life. So I went with my 2 girlfriends, and that sort of like spiraled our journey together. The 2 of them also are entrepreneurs. Our businesses, like of what we do, started around the same time. And it's all about like, when you take on a big journey, like whatever that is like, it's so important that you have some sort of a community or like a circle that can hold you, whether that's just there to listen or to uplift you. But to have like my 2 females who would meditate together and sit and then like manifest and talk about intentions. Like even in that New York trip, I went with those 2 girls on my 30th birthday, and we were actually sitting, and we have a photo of them. We're sitting at a diner, and we were writing down what we wanted for the next year. And
That's
every
awesome.
single thing that all the 3 of us wrote down, they all happened.
I love that.
And it's just like, where do you want to put your intention to? Where do you want to focus your energy on? Path least resisting, like focus on like the positive, move towards that. And like, it's terrible business advice, but like, don't ever do anything because of money. Like that will fall. That's just a
No,
cherry on
I don't think
top,
that. I think
you
that's the
know?
best business advice. I
Yeah.
think the best businesses are run with trying to provide, customer service and happiness
Yeah,
and fulfillment and doing things that you truly care about, and the money will follow.
exactly.
It might take a long time.
Yeah. And that's another thing too. Like, so much stuff has gone wrong, like in like owning the business.
So
And
I
like,
was gonna add, that was
yeah,
a question that I had is
sure.
like,
Yeah.
what are like the main struggles that you face operating a shoe repair shop?
Yeah.
Right? Because one, it's not a normal business to own. Two, it's your words, a dying trade.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe over the past few years, it's picked back up because of all the recrafters of sneakers
Totally.
and
Yeah.
things like, so that's helped the industry lift up for sure. But
Yeah.
it's still overall not, people don't think about it. They're like, oh,
No.
my shoes are worn out, and they're
Yeah.
not like, I'm going to go repair that. Right. So like, what are the main struggles that you have, both on the business end and then also like, maintaining everything and like,
Yeah.
do you have a work-life balance? Like, is it like all in? Like,
It's all one. And sometimes like that really shows, and it like, I'm tired and I'm like, oh my God, like I need to make, and then it's when you just take a break and everything resets again. But yeah, like one of the big things that I'm still learning is like knowing how to work the machinery and like knowing how to fix the machinery. Because like a lot of that stuff is like 100 years old.
sure.
They don't even make the pieces anymore. And this is what I love about connecting with like older cobblers who are open to like teach the younger generation. So a lot of them are really tired and angry, and they don't care to teach anyone else. Right. And there are some who are just like, oh, I admire you have passion for this. Like I can teach someone. And those guys wouldn't know how to like make their own piece for the machine, or like, and I'm like, I want to learn that. This is so cool. Like every cobbler would have like a proper wood shop because they would make their own little toe shapes or whatever, and for me, like, so after we got slammed of my 30th birthday, the big finisher breaks down on me because I was working on my own, that I would like turn the motor on and off, and the motor blew and all this like dust went everywhere. And I was like, oh my God, like where do I find a motor for this? How
right. When you have stacks of shoes that you got to get through.
Yeah. And so then I pretended that I was closed for a week for renovations.
Oh my God.
And I did everything by hand. And I was like drinking hard liquor, crying on the ground, just like my wrists throbbing.
You finished shoes by hand?
Yeah, just like, well, I mean, like shoemaking, you do everything by hand, but repairing is so annoying to by hand. So I would like grind
I'm familiar. Yeah. We have a thing called Soul Factor where we have a master cobbler, and it travels the country, and we repair people's shoes on the spot. And then 4 hours later, they get their shoes.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And then that's what pivoted, that I was like, I need help. And then ironically enough, like on that week that I was closed, this girl knocks on the door, and she's like, I know you're closed. I just like, if you ever need a lending hand. And I'm like, yep, come right now. Like grab this brush, glue these soles. Like, don't ask questions. I'll teach you later. Like, just copy me. And then she was like, okay, and that's how we like hustled. And, and then you have the learning experience of like, if you don't know the machinery, then also learning like with shoes, for example, I was so used to adding like rubber to leather soles. Great. Then 1,000 Mile Wolverine style boot comes out. It's so popular. I get like 5 pairs a day of people wanting to add the protective soles to them. Okay. I'm like, easy money. Great. What's this new brand? Put them on. Person comes back like 2 days later. They're like, my soles are peeling. I'm like, what? This has never happened before. Like, how do I problem solve? And I'm like, oh, wait, this leather feels different than other leathers. Oh, I do some research. Oh, Wolverine oils all the leather. Oh, I have to use different kind of glue. Like, you just learn. And like, the learning is painful because like, you're dealing with customers, you provide them with service. So some people like, man, I was given all of myself to the business and the customers because I loved it so much. And like, I would like talk to people like I'm talking with you while I was working on their shoes. And it was that intimate back then, we weren't like, I was busy, but like not that busy. But then you get someone who then is unhappy with the repair. Even though I didn't mean to, like, I'm just like putting my love into it. And then I'm like, oh, my heart's broken. This person's leaving a terrible review. Or like, oh my God, I'm crying because this person's yelling at me on the phone and they want their money back. And I'm like, what's happening? And then you like build that layer of skin and you learn how to deal. Like, I've worked in customer service, but never in that perspective of it's my own business, right? Like
Yeah, that
as
is
an
trial
employee, you can
by
always
fire.
check out and you're just like, let the boss deal with it. But
Totally.
yeah,
That is trial by fire. You are legitimately learning on the run.
yeah. And that's what I kept seeing and like would get, that I was like, oh man, every time it was like a struggle, it was sort of to say the universe and like this path that I was put on, like putting a sign up being like, are you sure you want to continue? Like you can say
I'm
no
sure you've
now.
had those nights where you're like, is this worth it anymore?
For sure. Totally, even when like COVID hit, I'm like, okay, am I going to continue doing this? Like, do I still love what I'm doing? Do I like continuing how I'm doing it? And the irony that this is happening is like, I was thinking already of shifting the business into more of like a warehouse space and deal strictly with people, you know, getting us to pick up their repairs and drop them off and delivering them or mailing them, like get rid of the customer service. Because a lot of people take a lot of our time up. And as much as I love them, like it's when you need to focus on a repair, you need to focus on a repair. And then people think you're being rude and whatever, so then COVID's happening and that kind of is like allowing me to shift into that
Yep.
easy because customers are now getting used to the fact of like, oh, I'll get it delivered or do curbside pickup, whatever, that
Gotcha.
kind of stuff.
So
So
has it, let me transition because it'll just
yeah,
run off of that. So
sure.
how directly has business slowed down because of COVID? Is it a lot worse? Is it manageable? Is it, do people
Yeah.
still care about shoe repair?
So the first month, like 70% decrease in business,
Wow. Okay.
like instantly. And since the last 2 weeks, like we've been getting busier and busier. So I
Okay.
think we're going to
That's
make it.
positive.
I think we're going to like, shift and change. And like, it's going to obviously like not be what it was of how many people we served. It's going to have to like pick up. But I'm okay with that because I'm just like, it truly is just another start again for a different chapter of what we're going to move forward to. So I'm optimistic about it. And also like it gives us that opportunity to like maybe showcase different types of repairs or customizations that we want to do and like push that so that we can start building that new clientele rather than like sticking with the old clientele, if unless they want to like follow and like, support what we want to do kind of thing.
Totally.
Yeah.
So you mentioned like asking yourself if you still love it once COVID hit. Like, do you still love what you do? Is it something, because 8 years is they say that 5 years is like the main hurdle for a business, right?
Yeah.
That like usually you crash and burn at that point, and
Yeah.
you've survived that. You're going on 10 now.
Yeah.
Is it something that you post COVID or whatever that you still envision moving forward and transitioning into this new era?
Yeah. I was really tired before COVID, to tell you the truth. And I kept thinking and trying to visualize like new ways of the business and like what it would look like. But then the process of having to do it, that felt like very stressful and scary, because like to try and like get your customers to get used to a change is, it's huge. Like humans do not like change, so for you to be like, hey, we've moved 2 doors down, they're gonna be like, where are you, like it's like it's that stressful to be like, are they gonna like follow us, and so before COVID, like I was exhausted. And then the fact that I'm getting to slow down and like redo things and relearn. Oh man, I and I keep having conversations like this too, where I'm like, I get to reminisce about what it was like in the beginning. And I feel like I'm right back there again.
You have a lot of energy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like I can hear it, that like it sounds like it came at a good time.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I feel internally that it's a good time for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And it's, not to be cliche and be like, it's meant to happen. Like, not to say that at all, because obviously it's a terrible thing that's what's happening. And like, people shouldn't have to be pushed into change that way, but
I'm
reset is needed.
1,000% with you. I think we needed it so badly, and it to me it's about time. And obviously, like I don't want anybody to die, but I think that it might be, I'd like somebody to do the math because it's not going to be me, but like it might be saving lives if you think about all the car accidents. I looked it up. It's like 90 people die in the United States a day.
Yeah.
Traffic deaths, and like, okay, that's a lot of people. And then like you think about the robberies and the shootings, and like, has all that gone down? Like, maybe it's really helped. And so like, I know that's a crazy thought, but
but
that's me being
good to have
optimistic.
the other perspective and to
Yeah.
like weigh it and bring it back into balance for sure. And look at how many makers it's brought out, right? Like
Everybody. It's been
all
like,
this
I mean,
talent, like where has it been, you know? Yeah.
it's like, I'm blown away and I'm so happy. Like, and I comically mentioned TikTok earlier, but it's like the amount of DIY videos on that like platform is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like I think you should do one for your shop because I think people would love it.
Eska keeps pushing that, and I'm like, if we're gonna do one, you can do it. You know, even like only now I'm enjoying Instagram because I have the time to enjoy. Before, like posting was such a drag, and like to be like, what should I say, and blah blah blah, and I'm like, I don't have time for this, you know. And then the irony too is like people like all the like photos where you're in it, and like anything dope that you do, you're just like, come on, like, are you seeing what we're doing? But people want to support the human, right? They like the story, and like
They
I
like
get
the
it.
authenticity.
For sure.
And at the end of the day, I think it's with anything, like I know what works, right? Like what type of post is really gonna work. I know that. And I could do that every day, but that's not me. Like,
exactly.
Every once in a while, yeah, sure, I can do that. But like, there's other parts of me that like people might not know about, or that I really just love and I want to show people. And like, at the end of the day, I don't give a fuck. So there's an unfollow button, just like there's a follow button.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, totally.
But no, I think that's really funny that like now you get to enjoy it. That things have settled down. So like, let me ask, like, you brought it up of like when you went to New York, you were writing down your yearly goals. Like, have you had the opportunity to do that now with the past couple weeks, months of doing that for the next phase of what your goals are, what your aspirations are, where do you want to take either the business or yourself creatively? It sounds like the hands-on aspect in making isn't going away, but like, what's next?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely like I've gotten a lot of like visualizations of what I want, and I'm actually rewriting our soul mission on our website and like doing little nuggets like that of just putting it out. I haven't fully like written what I want next, but yeah, the like larger space and expanding is for sure in the forefront. And I no longer look to have that like that perfect storefront, because that's just realistically that's becoming obsolete, you know. Retail and like the experience of like walking in somewhere, I'm just like, nah, stay at home, click click click, here's the same experience. And I'm looking forward to like to push that and move towards that. And then recently we just bought a bunch of lasts from Brooklyn Shoe Space in New York, and it's been on like my radar since day one, but like to make our own footwear line. We started working on like our own workwear line too, that like SK and the staff were like working on. So we're gonna like bring that back into motion and do other things that we're excited about. And like the staff, they have such amazing talent and other things that they're bringing in that I either never thought of or didn't have the time to experiment with. So it's so nice to get that perspective. And like, yeah, so I'm excited to like offer more than just shoe and leather repair, which is still like, you know, the bread and butter and always will be. But there's other things that we can offer that I know that now we have like the following, and perhaps we'll get the following for them.
Are you guys the only cobbler in Toronto?
No, there's like probably like in the downtown core maybe 10.
Oh wow.
But you have to think of like even New York, there's a
I also have
repair like every corner.
I've never been to Toronto, so I have no speculation of how big or small it is.
Yeah. But so it's more so like, you know, a lot of cobblers say no to a lot of things. Their shop is so small that they only take on certain things. You know, there was a terrible story of like a guy taking in repairs and making people pay in advance. And then he just kind of would like disappear for months on end. And then they were like, okay, well, I want my shoes. And he's never open. And then when he's open, and then he's kind of like retiring, and he's like, no, I still have the shoes. And he actually still had the shoes. They were just in garbage bags, like hoarded.
Oh my God.
He just was like, I don't want to do this job. Or it was hilarious. I was like, oh man, he's going to give us a bad rep. Like, but obviously we've never done that. So it wouldn't be the case.
Nice. Well, that's cool that you're planning on expanding and growing into doing
Yeah.
different things. And it seems like, I think that both the industry and then maybe the city of Toronto, like even putting them on, like I don't know anything about the city. I need to go visit one day, but
Yeah, you should come for sure.
uh, so I think the only other thing that's been in the back of my brain as we've been talking this whole time, that I could totally cut out if you're not comfortable doing it, but like I want to ask about like your rock bottom, because you mentioned it a bunch of times, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I, I know that there are so many people like you and I where they don't share their stories and they hide it, and they've all experienced something
Mm-hmm.
that has shifted and changed the way they think and operate and what they work for, what they live for, what they do on a day-to-day basis. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not really a specific question, but I'd like to just like grow and expand on that, because it sounds like you know you went through something very tough, right?
Yeah.
But you've climbed out of it, you've grown out of it, you've become a better person out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how is that process for you? And like it's not an easy thing to overcome.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I felt my rock bottom like 2 years ago, and it was on the fourth year of having two locations. And like those 4 years were a blur, because I was like, go, go, go. Um, Both of the shops were on the same major street, but like, maybe like 10-minute drive away.
Okay.
So I would like sometimes bike back and forth with like shoes on IKEA bags, because if one machine would break, I would like bring them back to the other one. And I had a lot of staff. And it was at the time where you just like, you keep thinking you have to go, go, go. But what I didn't realize, and when I didn't learn soon enough, I learned it after, of course, was that like I shouldn't say yes to everything. I shouldn't take on everything. Like my staff were there waiting for me to like lead them and teach them. When I was teaching them, but because we were so busy, I was also like, okay, you do this job now, I'm going to do these because I'm faster at these. So then everyone kind of was like stuck doing the same thing, right? I felt that way. I know they felt that way. And the one thing that like kept me going just was obviously my ego being like, oh my God, you have two locations. Like you're doing it. And then what started triggering it that like would make me lose sleep and I was really stressed was like, finances were becoming harder to take control of. You're spending more, even though you're making more, you're like, well, where is this money then going? Like your taxes are much higher than, right? And then the one thing that like kept coming up is like when I'd see people in the street who I hadn't seen them forever, and they were kind of friends or people that I'd known, they were just like, oh, you're killing it. And I'm like, fuck yeah, I'm dying. I am killing, I am killing myself, but you think I'm killing it like because I have two locations. And
Right.
like,
It's
you
all
know
perception.
um yeah. And then it had come to a point where I had to make this decision. I was just like, I can no longer go on like this. Like, I'm just gonna like, I need to close up the shop, And I decided to go back to just the one location. And then of course, when I went back to the one location, that move was hilarious, trying to like fit so many things into a small space again. And then a lot of stuff, because I had moved to a new home studio, I like brought the second shop to my home. And then at that point also, then you could see like the sort of the employees that had become bad eggs were starting to fizzle away. The team got super small, but by doing it so small again, like we got so much tighter and so much better.
That's awesome.
Customers that had been with me since day one, who hadn't seen in a while, started coming back again. And then what they had said to me, they were like, we decided to not come back for a while because like the quality and customer service had gone down. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And I'm thank you for coming back. And I totally know what you mean. I just was like blindsided by my ego and wanting to do it all. And then not realizing I was doing it all wrong. Like I had lost the meaning and the connection of why I was doing it and like how I wanted to do it. And that's COVID again, right? It's just like stopping me again, being like, careful, you're about to go back into like being busy. We're killing it, blah, blah, blah. Let's rewind. What do you want? How do you want to get to it? How do you want to move forward? So I'm super thankful for this time. like I had like 2 panic days of just like worrying about everything, and then I was like, oh wait, I'm not alone, everyone else is going through this. Oh wait, like I
I
get to
think
be home, I have a roof over my head, like, hey, you know.
that's a really important thing that I've discovered, right? And
Yeah.
it's so funny because I was talking to my therapist a couple of weeks ago, and she was like, "How you doing?" Obviously, that's a natural question that they ask. Is like,
Yeah.
and I'm like, "I'm doing all right, I think." Like, because at the end of the day, the playing field's all the same. And I think I talked
Yeah.
about this last episode of the previous one. Is like, it doesn't matter how much money you have, how famous you are, what you own, what you don't own. Everybody's on the same playing field.
Yeah.
Nobody's going anywhere.
Yeah.
Nobody's doing anything. There's no
You're
formula.
all at home making bread, we know. Yes. Yeah.
I've had to learn how to cook for the
Yeah.
first time in my life,
Yeah.
right? It's a unique experience, and I eat a lot of shitty food because I can't cook.
Yeah.
And that's okay. It's a learning experience because I was so busy before that I just buy fast food all the time and eat this
Yeah.
unhealthy lifestyle. So again, to your point, it's been nice as a reset of like evaluating what you've been working towards, where you are,
Yeah.
how to take a step back and just grow and become better. So
Yeah.
I agree 1,000%. It's a really nice, not nice in the perspective that, you know, people are getting sick and like
Yeah.
things like that, but it's a really, really good reset for a lot of people.
Yeah.
It sounds like it came at a good time for you as well.
Yeah, I mean, again, like you said, it's all about perspective, right? And like I'm sure people eventually, years down the line, they'll realize like with like the bad, the good will come. Um like, yeah, it's what a crazy time to like be alive and like have a business and be creative, and it's good. I hope many people can connect to that at their own
What's
time, you know.
what's the best part and the worst part of owning a business?
The best part is like you can make up the rules, and the worst part is everything's on your shoulders. So like if you can learn to play that game, and to know when to be that person, and to know like how to deal with that, and again, like obviously then community is important, because like, you know, we all assume it's all happening to us and like it's poor me, but then when you say it out loud, then you realize like someone else is listening and they're giving you advice, and that helps. And like again, like talking it out with people who also have businesses, that really helps. Um and finding people that like won't tell you to give up, right? Like I have
Keep
some
going.
family members that like are telling me economy is bad right now, you should close up shop, right? Instead of being like, okay, so if I close up shop, like there's no jobs out there, at least I've created a job for myself, like then it would be up for me to, again, to hustle. So, you know, it's important to like surround yourself around people that like will tell you to like, okay, it's a hard day today, tomorrow's a new day, like keep going, you'll learn. So I would say those are the two things. Like I love, especially now, I'm like, today I'm not working, tomorrow I'll work harder, like, you know. But like if when you have a physical store and you're open every day and you're just like, oh, I work every day, like you, like everyone else, like regretting Mondays, when before, back in the day, I used to love Mondays because I was closed on a Monday, you know. So I enjoy that aspect of like being a business owner and like doing it your way. Especially if you like, you know, I didn't go to business school, like I said, I didn't write a business plan. And I'm actually learning all those things now as for like for fun, because I luckily enough, I was nominated for this like women's award, and for it I actually have to present a business plan of like why I did Soul Survivor. So
Recently?
that's just recently, yeah, like it happened right in April. We got
Oh my
the
God. Yeah,
yeah.
super recent. Well,
Yeah,
congrats, I think,
thank you.
first and foremost.
Yeah, I mean, so part of the nomination process, like once you get nominated, you have to like present them, you know, why you're doing the business and like how are you going to move forward. And so I'm like, oh, this is exciting. I actually get to finally write like that business plan and like
So it's
that
an
ideas.
opportunity for them to invest or like give you a
Correct. Yeah,
grant?
like exactly. They give you a grant
Oh,
if you
cool.
get chosen. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So trying that out.
That's really great. I don't have anything else scripted in terms of like
Okay.
questions or anything like that. I don't know. Would you do you have like any advice for anybody listening or
I mean, it's interesting. I was like, what are we going to talk about? Because I watched your previous people you've had on, and like such fascinating like young kids who are just like like, I'm like, how are you doing this? This is next level.
I
I
mean, you're
love
still
it, you know?
super young too.
Yeah, yes, but like not, you know, this generation comes from a perspective of like doing things online. Oh my God, I sound like an old person. I'm like, computers, what are those? Because I'm so hands-on. And I like, you know, like I said, I just started to enjoy Instagram. So it's that's what I get inspired by, of like the programs people are doing, you know. Learned a new word, Python. I was like, what is that? I'm gonna look it up.
Did you see my facial reaction? Because I was like, I don't know what the fuck
I
you just
did.
said.
I did. So, you know, I think the one thing that I would maybe say to like that younger generation, there's like, I can totally resonate with them, and like, you know, I can get down with them, but I would say, don't try to get there so quick. You know, if this is what you're passionate about and this is what you love, allow for time to do its thing. Because everything is given to us so fast now, and we get that instant gratification. We right away, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna start this business, I'm gonna like move up right away, I want to get paid this much, and it's like, what have you done? Have you experienced that at all? Like, enjoy it, like just be
Right.
in it, fuck up a little bit, like learn again. So I would say that I'm like, don't, like, just take your time.
Yeah, that's awesome. I agree. I think patience is like the biggest thing that people lack these days.
Yeah,
Myself included. I'm
for sure.
consistently working on it and trying to be
Yeah,
better at it. But
yeah,
understanding that things take time to grow and become, you know, things. I think people just get too impatient. They're like, you know, they just start chasing these not realistic goals or
yeah.
things that they think is like what's in or cool and
Exactly. And I'm, you know, like if you were to go back and like interview everyone you've interviewed in this time, 10 years later, like, will they still be doing that
that's a
particular thing?
that's a great idea.
I mean, yeah. So like,
I'm gonna do that. I mean,
yeah,
I'm gonna
you
steal that for sure.
do it. I think, but so, you know, that whole concept of like, 10 years of doing something, you become a master at it. Like, I think that's what's missing this day and age. And perhaps like people finding themselves by doing something with their hands might bring that back again. I don't know. I, I get it. Technology is like far ahead, and like it's going to bring us to where we need to go. And I don't fight that at all, but I think like you can still, um, kind of sit with it longer than like having to like move forward right
Do you
away.
think that shoe repair or like recrafting is ever gonna go away?
I don't think so. Like, there's just new generations coming out, right? And like people are gonna like want to do different things to shoes. I don't know if necessarily like everyone is gonna like offer it as a service the way I do. Like that perhaps might change, because a lot of it is very much like, I only do this one thing, and if you like this, then bring it to me. Whereas for us, we'll do like jackets, bags, like all of it, because that also helps with like how we offer things, and we don't just do like, you know, I don't just put the wedge soles on men's dress shoes anymore. That was something that I wanted to experiment with. But yeah, so I think that might be the difference of like the newer generation like doing shoe repair. Perhaps it won't be shoe repair, it'd just be like customization or something. I don't know.
Or some extension of that, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Cool. Do you want to talk about anything else? I don't, we've been chatting for an
Like,
hour, which is crazy. Being the first time we've ever really spoken.
yeah.
Usually I at least have like a DM like relationship with somebody where like
Yeah.
we'll comment on each other's stories and stuff like that, even though we've never spoken words.
We've just like exchanged the Ripple Soul pictures.
Yes, exactly. And
And
then
like
I got your
100. Yeah.
email from is it Eski?
SK, yeah.
I always thought it was East for some reason, but I didn't. But anyway, because we've never met or spoken, we
Yeah,
have.
when you interview him, ask him about his name. There is a story behind it, so he'll.
Oh, I'm stoked! I can't wait.
Yeah, yeah,
So yeah, I mean, I think this is super helpful, and obviously I've learned a lot because I don't know anything about owning my own business. I work for a corporation, so.
yeah.
Do you ever think you will work for a corporation or go corporate again or?
I mean, you know what? I don't know necessarily, like, this is the thing too. When you've owned your own business for like a certain amount of time, like, I mean, I have no problem going a place for someone telling me, hey, do this job, and I'll do it. I think I would see myself more like being a contractor or like a consultant of sorts, or like getting to collaborate with them rather than working for them. Like, I want to work with them, you know? So yeah, would totally say yes to that for sure. That's kind of how like our relationship with Red Wing started as well. And like, you know, us being in like the women's catalog and then becoming their authorized cobbler in Toronto. Like, it's just like, it was a relationship that was being built, and I value that, and I would love to like work with them more and you know, do stuff.
Have you ever been there?
Yeah. They brought me down. So they had a really large, a sales meeting for all the European division and North American division, and they invited me. And so it was funny because my name, they were like, "Oh, who do you sell for?" And I was like, "I'm a cobbler. I sell for myself." I don't know, like, but it was so cool to go to the factory. Like,
That's ridiculous, isn't it?
Totally. The woman doing the tour, she was like just getting so annoyed by me because I would just stay behind and talk to the people, and like the guy would be like, "Here, you want to trim these soles?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I do." Like, I was like, "Do you guys want to hire me? I would love to like work there for a week." Because like, if I'm in the zone, I can plow through so many shoes. Like Eske says this all the time too, in the staff, they'll just watch me sand like a maniac, and I'll be like 50 pairs done, you know? And I like that repetitiveness too. It feels very, very meditative. But yeah, I would never say no to like that opportunity if it came up. So if Vibrant wants to work with me, you let me know. Okay. Like, it's all
I mean, you obviously use our product
all the time. Yeah.
But like, has anybody ever visited your shop? Because like we toured.
Not like a Vibrant representative. No.
Oh.
Or I would love to come to the factory, like whatever.
Yeah, you should be an authorized dealer. I mean, we are like, we have like, two things. We have like diamond dealers who are like, I think there's like 6 or 8 of them, and I'm probably going to be completely wrong and somebody's going to yell at me.
Yeah.
But we have a handful of them that are like, they're like the masters around the United States. I don't know if it's expanded to Canada though.
Yeah.
But we work with over 4,500 cobbler shops in the US alone. So that's, it's a lot.
Yeah. So you see, there's that many cobblers out there, and like,
there's a lot. Yeah.
But you know, the irony too, I remember like when Soul Factor was coming out, and like, I'm part of this like shoe repair group on Facebook.
Nice.
And like probably like 90% of them were like, "What is this, red soles?" and like just hating it. And I was like, "No, wait for it. Like, this is, you know, people are gonna come for it. Just don't say no." Like, that's the one thing.
Be open-minded.
Cobblers do, just be open-minded. And then it's so lovely for them. Like, they're starting to embrace it. Some of them are getting Instagram accounts. Their photos are hilarious because it's like really.
I mean, you got to think about it, right? Such an old school trade has to adopt to the times, and like there are plenty of cobbler shops that have like a massive following because people like that stuff, and that's why I bring up even TikTok, because like they love DIY, they love that shit.
Yeah. Well, okay, maybe we'll get on that, you know.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, if you don't want to do it, like have somebody else do it.
Yeah. I'm just like, guys, I don't know how to work this TikTok that way. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, obviously your website is Soul Survivor Shop.
Yeah, Soul Survivor Shop. That's our Instagram handle as well. Soul Survivor Shop, and that's where the only places we're at. I was like, TikTok soon. I don't know what we'll call that, you know, but we'll let you know. Yeah, people can find us there if they feel like they want to follow and like check out the journey of it. I'm doing my best to be, you know, on trend, but also whatever.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's you and what you feel is right. So that's gotten you this far.
Hey man, instincts, all about that, you know.
So
gotta connect.
Anything else? Otherwise, like, this was
I can't believe you asked me all those questions and we covered it. I was worried that we were gonna go over time.
Oh, no. I'm like the easiest person to talk to, I think.
Awesome. Yeah. So nice to meet you. I feel like we should do another one now, and I want to interview you because I also have questions.
I mean, I can literally cut it here, and then you could ask me questions if you want.
Yeah, if you want, sure.
It's up to you. I got nowhere to go, obviously.
Well, I have.
All right, so we're cutting here.
Yeah. Clap it.